This is the world of Homer's Greece, a Bronze Age where gods walk among mortals, meddle in their wars, and never forget an insult. Troy has fallen. 10 years of siege, and Odysseus's wooden horse finally won the war. His ships turn for his home Ithaca, a trip of a few weeks by sea. It takes him 10 more years. Not because he's lost, because somewhere along the way he humiliates a god's son, and the sea itself decides he isn't allowed to go home easily. Back in Ithaca, his son Telemachus has grown from a baby into a young man who's never once seen his father's face. With his mother's suitors camped out in the palace, and no word from Troy in 20 years, Telemachus finally sails off himself, chasing rumors of a king who might still be alive somewhere past the edge of the map. Odysseus's own warning comes first on the island of the Lotus Eaters, where a few of his men taste a strange fruit and stop wanting anything else. Not food, not family, not Ithaca. Odysseus has to drag them back to the ships in chains. Next, a green island where his crew shelters in a cave stacked with cheese and livestock. It belongs to Polyphemus, a Cyclops, son of the sea god Poseidon. He comes home, rolls a boulder over the only exit, a stone no 10 men could move, and starts eating Odysseus's crew, 2 at a time, for dinner. Odysseus gets him drunk on wine so strong it has to be watered down 9 times, tells him his name is Nobody, then drives a fire-hardened stake into the giant's single eye while he sleeps. Polyphemus screams for help, but when his neighbors ask who's attacking him, he shouts, "Nobody!" and they walk away. At dawn, the surviving men escape by lashing themselves under the bellies of the Cyclops' own sheep, slipping past his groping hands as he feels only wool. It should have ended there, but as his ship pulls away, Odysseus can't resist one boast. He shouts his real name back across the water. Polyphemus prays to his father, Poseidon, to make sure Odysseus never makes it home, and if he does, to make sure he arrives broken, alone, and late. For a moment, it looks like the curse won't matter. The wind god Aeolus hands Odysseus a leather sack holding every storm wind in the world, sealed shut, so only a gentle breeze pushes him home. 9 days later, Ithaca is in sight. Odysseus finally lets himself sleep, and his crew, convinced the sack is hiding stolen treasure, opens it. Every storm in the world explodes out at once and hurls them backward across the entire sea they'd just crossed. Next comes Circe, a sorceress who serves Odysseus's scouting party a feast laced with drugs, then turns every man who eats it into a pig with a touch of her staff. Odysseus goes in alone to save them, protected by a magic herb the god Hermes gives him. When her potion has no effect on him, Circe is stunned rather than furious. She turns his men back and asks Odysseus to stay. He does for a full year, before his crew reminds him Ithaca is still waiting. Before he can sail home, Circe tells him he has to do something no living man has done: cross into the underworld and speak to the dead. There, the blind prophet Tiresias gives him the whole truth. He will make it home, but he'll lose every single one of his men along the way and arrive alone on a stranger's ship to a house full of enemies. Sailing on, Odysseus faces the Sirens, whose song is so beautiful that every sailor who hears it steers straight into the rocks and drowns. He seals his crew's ears with wax, then has them lash him to the mast so he alone can hear the song and live to describe it. Next is a strait guarded on both sides, Scylla, a 6-headed monster that snatches sailors straight off the deck, and Charybdis, a whirlpool that can swallow the entire ship whole. There's no clean path through. Odysseus hugs the cliff nearest Scylla and watches 6 of his men torn screaming from the deck, rather than risk losing the ship and everyone on it. Then his starving crew makes the one mistake Tiresias warned them about by name. They slaughter and eat the sacred cattle of the sun, god Helios, grazing on a forbidden island. Zeus's answer is immediate. A storm splits the ship apart and drowns every man aboard. Odysseus alone survives, clinging to a broken mast, exactly as the prophet said he would. He washes up on the island of the nymph Calypso, who falls in love with him and keeps him there for 7 years, offering him immortality if he'll simply forget Ithaca and stay. He refuses, sitting on the beach every day, staring at the horizon, until the gods finally order Calypso to let him go. He builds a raft, survives one last shipwreck, and is found half-drowned by a princess on the shore of the Phaeacians, whose people give him the one thing he's been missing this whole time, a ship home, with nothing asked in return. By the time Odysseus reaches Ithaca, 20 years have passed since he first left for Troy. 10 fighting, his palace is overrun by suitors who've moved in on his wife. His wife Penelope has held them off for years with one trick. She'll remarry once she finishes weaving a burial shroud, then secretly unravels every night's work by torchlight. Odysseus returns to his own palace disguised as a filthy beggar, unrecognized by everyone in it, except his old dog, who lifts his head from the dirt one last time and dies right there at his master's feet. That night, the old nurse Euryclea washes the beggar's feet by torchlight and freezes, a scar above his knee, from a boar hunt when he was a boy. She nearly shouts his name across the hall. Odysseus grabs her wrist and begs her silence. The suitors can't know yet. Penelope, still not knowing the beggar at her door is her husband, announces a contest. She'll marry whichever man can string her husband's old hunting bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads in a row. Every suitor tries. Not one of them can even bend it. The beggar asks for a turn. He strings the bow in one motion, like it's an extension of his own arm. Because it is. Then he turns it on the men who spent 10 years eating his kingdom alive. It took Odysseus 10 years to sail home from a war he'd already won in 10, not because he was weak, because the sea itself never forgave him for one boast, shouted over his shoulder at a blinded giant on a beach. 20 years after he first sailed for Troy, the king of Ithaca finally has his kingdom, his wife, and his name back, the very name that started the whole curse in the first place.